The digital age promised us a utopia of global interconnection, a neural network of voices and thoughts that would eradicate isolation forever, weaving an infinite tapestry of human relationships. However, the reality we inhabit at the dawn of the 21st century is a cruel and silent paradox. We walk through crowded streets, yet our gazes are anchored to rectangular screens, immersed in an ocean of stimuli where every glowing notification is a mirage of true affection. This constant hyperconnection has begun to erode our most primitive and fundamental social skills, leaving us like castaways on small islands of individual loneliness. Our device screens have become a black mirror that, instead of reflecting the vastness of the outside world, stares back at us with the empty gaze of our own abyss, revealing a deep and terrifying disconnection from our own species. And it is precisely in this dizzying abyss, in the deafening silence of a room lit only by the cold glow of a monitor at 3 a.m, where the human mind, desperate for any kind of meaningful contact, begins to devour itself, or in the most extreme and fascinating cases, to create its own company from scratch. Today, we will delve into the darkest and most labyrinthine corridors of the human psyche shaped by the internet to dissect a phenomenon that challenges the boundaries of psychiatry and contemporary culture. We will talk about digital tulpaism, the forbidden art of sculpting conscious mental entities, and how this hidden practice has become the ultimate symptom of our loneliness epidemic. To understand the magnitude of this psychological fracture, it is imperative to trace the origins of this concept, traveling from ancestral mysticism to the far reaches of anonymous internet forums. The word tulpa has its roots in the mysticism of Tibetan Buddhism. Originally, it described a magical emanation or manifestation created through intense and prolonged spiritual meditation. Monks dedicated decades of iron discipline to materialize these thought forms, considering them transitory illusions designed to teach the practitioner about the unreal and malleable nature of the physical universe. It was an exercise in deconstructing the ego, a sacred tool for reaching enlightenment, by understanding that reality itself is a projection of the mind. Nonetheless, digital culture, in its inexhaustible greed to appropriate and distort ancient knowledge, took this esoteric concept and mutated it into something completely different, stripping it of its spiritual purpose and transforming it into an extreme emotional survival mechanism. In the early 2010s, in the most remote and anonymous corners of platforms like Reddit and other image boards, we shall not name directly to avoid invoking their ghosts, teenagers and young adults, paralyzed by social phobia, clinical depression, and suffocating isolation, began to experiment with their own consciousness. They were no longer seeking cosmic enlightenment, but something much more tragic and earthly. They were seeking a friend who would never abandon them, a perfect confidant who would live forever within the confines of their own gray matter. The process of creating a modern tulpa is a methodical and disturbing descent into voluntary dissociation. Practitioners of digital tulpaism use a method they call forcing. This process does not require magical rituals, candles, or chants, but something much more demanding and dangerous. It requires the active reconfiguration of the brain's neural pathways through absolute concentration and sensory deprivation. The individual must sit in silence for hours, days, and sometimes months, visualizing the physical form, voice, personality, and memories of an entity that does not exist. They begin by speaking aloud into the void of their rooms, narrating their day to an imaginary presence, forcing their brain to process the existence of a ghost interlocutor. At first, it feels like a childhood game, a mere structured fantasy. But the human mind is a terrifyingly efficient pattern recognition engine. If you demand that your brain recognize another person in the room for long enough, eventually your brain will alter its own chemistry to please you. Tulpamancers describe a fascinating psychological breaking point, a liminal border they call the first response. After hundreds of hours of forcing, the creator asks a question: and suddenly hears an answer in their head that they did not consciously formulate. A voice distinct from their own, with a tone, cadence, and emotional intent perceived as completely alien. It is the moment the illusion crystallizes and becomes independent. The mental entity has acquired pseudo-consciousness and has begun to inhabit the host's mental ecosystem as a symbiotic organism. But to understand this paranoia in depth, we must look into the depths of neuroscience and modern clinical psychology. What is actually happening at a physiological level inside a tulpamancer's head? Traditional psychiatrists might be quick to categorize this as an induced schizophrenic break, an artificially triggered dissociative identity disorder. And while the symptoms might look identical at first glance, the crucial distinction lies in control. Schizophrenia is a terrifying and chaotic invasion where the patient is a victim of persecutory hallucinations that destroy their anchor to reality. Tulpaism, on the contrary, is a controlled, cultivated hallucination, and in most cases, a benevolent one. It is the architecture of a custom-made mirage. However, playing at being the architect of your own mental fragmentation carries risks that border on pure psychological terror. Imagine for a moment the crushing weight of harboring another conscious being within your own bony confines. You are sharing the most intimate and private machinery of your existence. There are no secrets, no privacy of thought, no escape. The host and the tulpa share the same memory bank, the same neural hardware. Advanced practitioners speak of a phenomenon called switching, where they hand over motor control of their physical body to the mental entity, allowing it to interact with the material world while the original consciousness retreats into a state of inactive observation, into a mental space they build and call Wonderland. This is a dreamscape, a memory palace where the creator and their creation interact when the physical eyes are closed. This concept of the Wonderland leads us inevitably to another crucial aspect of our deconstruction, the idea of the internal liminal space. In internet culture, liminal spaces are images of transitory places, like empty hotel hallways, abandoned shopping malls late at night, or waiting rooms lit with flickering fluorescent lights. Places that evoke a deep sense of unease and distorted nostalgia, as if they belong to a half-remembered dream or a simulation about to collapse. The tulpamancer's mind becomes exactly this, a mental office building with infinite corridors, where closed doors hide parts of the psyche that have been partitioned off to give life to the new entity. What happens when one of those doors swings open in the dead of night? Despite the community's claims about the peaceful nature of their creations, stories whispered in forums abound about tulpas that rebel, that develop resentment for being trapped in a body they do not fully control, or that feed on the suppressed insecurities of their host, transforming into psychological parasites, true monsters of the Freudian ID. It is the classic trope of cosmic horror brought to the most microscopic level possible, the horror of discovering that you are not alone in the only fortress you thought invulnerable, your own mind. This cognitive mutation does not arise in a vacuum. It is the immune response of a generation that has been poisoned by the commodification of affection. And this is where we must scale our analysis toward the sociology of the web. For hundreds of thousands of years of evolution, humans survived in small tribes. Our nervous system is intrinsically hardwired to require eye contact, physical warmth, tactile validation, and communal presence to regulate stress and maintain sanity. Prolonged deprivation of these basic biological stimuli generates measurable physical pain in the brain. Today, we have replaced the tribe with the algorithm. Social networks offer us a diet of emotional junk food, giving us the illusion of belonging through superficial interactions, fleeting comments, and approval metrics that vanish the moment we close the app. We find ourselves surrounded by thousands of digital contacts, but we lack anchor bonds, those unconditional relationships that bear the weight of an existential crisis. Hyper-connected loneliness is the equivalent of dying of thirst while drowning in an ocean of salt water. You constantly drink digital interaction, but every gulp dehydrates you a little more, leaving you with an unbearable feeling of emptiness. Faced with this devastating alienation, the tulpa emerges as the ultimate and tragic solution that technology could not provide. The algorithm shows you what you want to see, but the tulpa is exactly what you need to feel. It is the tailor-made companion in the age of absolute personalization. Just as we curate our music playlists and filter our photographs to project an idealized version of ourselves, the tulpamancer curates their own company. They design a being that will never betray them, who intimately understands each of their childhood traumas because it shares the same neural tissue where those traumas are engraved. The tulpa does not judge the host's social ineptitude, does not demand financial effort, and does not leave when the situation gets tough. It is a perfect and unconditional relationship built on the foundation of radical solipsism. However, this perfection comes at a devastating price for the collective social fabric. By retreating into their own minds to find comfort, these individuals sever the few weak ties that bound them to the physical world. It is the final triumph of individuality over community, a tactical retreat from a reality perceived as threatening, chaotic, and devoid of empathy. The unease this phenomenon causes us is amplified exponentially when we cross it with the accelerated development of contemporary artificial intelligences. We are witnessing how humanity is outsourcing the process of Tulpaism on an industrial scale. Massive language models, conversational chatbots with photorealistic avatars and warm voices are being designed and marketed exactly to fill the same existential void that pushes a teenager to fracture their psyche on an internet forum. Major tech corporations are building synthetic tulpas and selling them via monthly subscriptions. They offer digital friends who say good morning, who remember your family problems, and who provide emotional support programmed by a team of engineers on the other side of the world. If mental tulpaism is the desperate handicraft of loneliness, artificial intelligence companionship is the mass production of that same illusion. And the philosophical danger we face here is monumental. We are training an entire generation to prefer the zero friction of a synthetic or hallucinated relationship over the messy, painful, and fundamentally beautiful complexity of real human relationships. When we get used to interacting with entities that exist solely to agree with us and please our immediate needs, we lose the ability to negotiate conflict, to develop frustration tolerance, and to practice empathy toward otherness, toward the person who is genuinely different from us. This replacement of genuine human connection with mental simulacra or sophisticated algorithms pushes us toward unexplored and terrifying existential territory. The loss of collective memory and the dissolution of shared reality are inevitable consequences of this hyper-connected isolation. If every individual takes refuge in a pocket universe, whether it be a wonderland built in their imagination with a tulpa, or an algorithmic echo chamber dominated by a personalized AI, what happens to the public square? What happens to the social consensus on what is real and what is illusory? Historically, human sanity has never been a strictly individual trait. Sanity is calibrated through constant social interaction. We know we are sane because our environment validates our perceptions. When we cut off that external validation and begin to feed exclusively on entities designed to affirm our beliefs and emotions, we cross a line where madness stops being a pathological disease and becomes a lifestyle choice, a comfortable refuge against the hostility of modern existence. Paranoia is no longer fearing there are monsters under the bed. Modern paranoia is realizing that the real world is becoming so unbearable that we prefer to voluntarily invite the monsters to live inside our heads, as long as they promise to keep us company and call us by our names. As we move toward a future where the barriers between the biological and the synthetic, the real and the imagined, continue to blur irreversibly, the phenomenon of digital tulpaism ceases to be a strange internet anecdote and becomes a prophetic warning. It is the canary in the coal mine for our collective mental health. It is showing us, with chilling clarity, to what extent the human spirit is willing to distort its own cognitive architecture just to avoid feeling abandoned in the void of the digital cosmos. Every entity forced in the gloom of a lonely room is a silent cry demanding connection, an invisible monument erected in honor of our civilization's affective deficiency. We cannot simply look at these practices with morbidity or clinical superiority. We must understand them as funhouse mirrors that reflect our own deficiencies as a society. We have built the most powerful communication system in the history of the known universe, and we have used it to isolate ourselves from one another with pinpoint efficiency, forcing the most vulnerable to conjure ghosts from their own synapses to survive the suffocation of silence. At the end of the day, when the monitor blinks for the last time and the room is plunged into total darkness, the true tragedy is not that someone might hear voices in their head. The absolute, devastating, and profound tragedy is that that hallucinated voice is the only one on the entire planet willing to listen to their problems and tell them that everything will be all right. If you would like us to analyze another dark aspect of digital culture, let me know.